Hi guys, this is Hero. How's everyone doing today? Ajibada Kemcho, Aj Sub Kesu. Today I'm going over why Ketu is painful in its very own unique and difficult way. Okay, and the reason why is because it not only attacks your subconscious in a way that is very important to you, so that you really feel a lot of stress and detachment, but it does it in a very subtle way, to a point to where whatever is happening to you or happening for you, you're almost questioning, like, or you're almost kind of thinking in your head that, like, this is only happening to me. Like these certain circumstances, it's either super unique to me or it's affecting me in some super unique way that almost nobody else can relate to me. Okay. And this is a very common theme. And that's the theme that I'm going to touch about in this video. See, the question that a lot of people ask and that I get asked is, in my Ketu Dasha, what's going to happen, right? That's a really wrong way to look at it, because Ketu kind of hits you not really in what's going to happen, but why things are happening, or how things are happening, or the specific timings of things that will happen. Like, two things will happen at the exact same time and independently. It's not really anything huge. It might be like medium difficulty, but combined in a certain way, it just makes things super tricky, especially if you're managing also external expectations at the same time. And that compounding overload, especially when you combine external things with internal, like managing your internal as well as external, to kind of, especially like keep up appearances or whatever, or whatever illusion you have of keeping up appearances or avoiding disaster on the surface of certain kind of colliding circumstances that can really be stressful and drainful, right? And this stressfulness and drainfulness also adds to the effect of, kind of being isolated. And I'm not even going to say depressed. I don't really think depressed is the right word, but detached, right? It adds that feeling of detachment. See, if you take, why are we attached, right? We have certain visions of who we are, what we want to be, what our life wants to be, and things like that. When you add in pain and, certain extremes that really force you to shake your mind up and broaden your mindset, through the broadening of that mindset, your mind is forced to wake up and see that whatever you're attached to is not actually something that you really need to be attached to at all, or at the level at which you are attached to, right? There's a reason why the eighth house is a Dustana, right? It's extremes. The two worst houses, or you could say in the zodiac horoscope system, is the 8th and the 12th, right? They're both moksha houses. 12th has to do with losses, right? Which is pretty self-explanatory, right? When you lose something, you don't like it. You like to, keep as much as possible, but, losing things are, part of growth. They're part of, moving on to the next cycle. However, what a lot of people don't realize is truly why the 8th house is also a really bad Dustana, right? These extremes are the only way you learn, right? That's the only true way you elevate to higher wisdom. That's why after 8 is 9, 10, 11, and 12. And in sign perspectives, those are all of Jupiter's and Saturn's signs, which are, like, the most spiritually highly elevated you can say. So that 8th comes right before. Through extremes, that's the only way. See, 1 through 7, from a house perspective, they're kind of like your core material houses to an extent, right? Like, your first house is literally your body, whatever. Your second house could be your family, fourth home, or seventh spouse, whatever, right? 8 to 12 is really where the spiritual kind of nature takes off. Okay. And the 8 is kind of the kickoff, right? It is kind of, you need extremes to think outside the box, to basically detach from whatever story is playing out in your mind. Okay. Now, Ketu, directly doesn't have anything to do with the eighth house, but it is also a very extreme planet, right? And it's a headless planet, right? And I think you can kind of see the comparison here, right? When you have to jump to extremes, you are forced to learn. Okay, so you're actually learning a lot in Ketu Mahadasha. You're just learning it in a super duper painful way versus like Jupiter, you're learning it in a much more friendlier fashion usually. Okay, so Ketu, I said it makes its pain unique to you, right? There are some situations where it is very commonly acceptable or whatever that, hey, like something really bad happened, right? But a lot of the times, a lot of people run a Ketu Mahadasha, especially non-Indians, whatever, and they don't even know what's happening, right? Or they didn't even know it happened, whatever. And it kind of just gets chalked up as a normal problem. And you could interpret it that way. That, yeah, most of the stuff in Ketu, you can pretty much handle it through the same way that you handle other problems, right? Like, detachment, meditation, just thinking groundedly, watching your eating, your drinking, whatever, right? But one, a lot of people don't do that for their daily life problems. And two, these problems are usually, like I said, a little bit more extreme from a personal level. They're super disguised to, it's like a sneak attack on your subconscious, Ketu's problems that it throws at you, right? Like I said, no disaster might happen. Even if you explain it to people, the kind of turmoil you're going through mentally, it doesn't really make sense. People just kind of think you're way over your head or you're just exaggerating or something like that. But yeah, like I said, the way it attacks you, and see, Ketu is a short Mahadasha, right? Or any Dasha, it's going to be a lot shorter, right? It's only 7 years. Throughout its Antardashas, it's going to attack you in very different ways, right? Like, for example, your sun, it will attack your ego, your moon, it will attack your mind. And it obviously goes in that order for a reason. So it will attack you systematically in order for a particular reason. And my point of advice is when things happen, because you're hopefully aware of the Antardashas and how they work and what each planet represents, if something happens, let's just say in your sun Antardasha, your moon Antardasha, your Rahu Antardasha, you know that the problems that are coming, the pain that is coming is associated with those specific areas, right? Obviously, you need to look into it a little bit more. Like if Ketus, for example, is conjunct a certain planet in your natal chart, it's going to have that bleeding effect throughout its whole Mahadasha. Or, the sign lord of Ketu, or even transit wise, right? Like if it's transiting with a certain other planet, during that time period, it's also going to add its effects, right? So what you want to do is whatever influences are with Ketu itself is a very difficult planet to understand, right? And that's completely okay. But what you want to do is you want to get as much help as possible, right? And by help, I don't mean predictive help. I mean help in the sense that, okay, I know my problems, my mental plane is stemming from this area because I'm running this Antardasha, or Ketu is conjunct with this planet at this time, or Ketu is in this sign at a transit level, which is ruled by this planet, right? So I need to, for example, detach from my identity, or I need to detach from my emotions, or I need to detach from my illusions, or whatever, right? Or I need to detach from, whatever, right? I need to detach from my sense of being someone that I'm trying to be, but that I'm not really meant to be. Or I need to detach from some work that I'm doing that I'm not really meant to do, right? Or something like that. So that is the true way of how you're never going to predict exactly what happens during your Ketu Mahadasha, right? I mean, you can get away with, guessing one or two things and being correct. That's at a very general high level. That's fine. But like I said, that's not really going to give you any sort of insight, right? The real way it attacks you is it combines these like certain factors or circumstances in a way that, just really causes pain for specifically you at a specific time in a very unique fashion, over and over again, that just really makes life much more draining. And that is what causes all the effects that it's known to cause, right? And some of those effects are a little bit more direct in the way that I just described, but that's a huge part of it, right? In general, yeah, you'll throw out a lot of fake people and stuff like that, but like, it's not just because, oh, Ketu causes that. It's Ketu causes something which causes that, right? You don't just naturally just wake up and decide to get rid of people, right? You just decide that you've outgrown them for a bunch of certain reasons, but those reasons are what cause you to, cut certain people off or distance yourself from certain people or whatever, or even grow closer to certain people, or you can grow closer to certain people while you distance yourself from them. That is a thing, right? There's sometimes being a little bit too close to people is a little bit toxic. Nothing saying you're not a bad person, they're not a bad person, the relationship's not bad. Sometimes just causing some distance actually makes it a little bit more grounded and healthier, right? That's also something to consider. But I'm past 10 minutes, actually at 11 now, so I'm gonna go ahead and end this video. If you have any questions or comments as usual, feel free to let me know. Until next time, I'll talk to you guys later. Thank you all very, very much as usual for watching.